Hey class, welcome to week 3 of the Structure of Information course. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys all had a good weekend. Thank you for your journals and discussion posts and weekly activities. I'll be getting to grading those things shortly if I haven't already. One thing I want to note is for the discussion boards. For the first week discussion board, for the responses, I was pretty lenient as long as you put a sentence or anything. But moving forward, I definitely looking for more of a significant response. So 3 to 4 paragraphs at least, something sorry, not paragraphs, sentences. Um full sentences responding to your fellow classmate, and I'll be giving out partial credit if you don't do a significant job. First time you get the partial credit, email me, you can revise it. Other than that, I'm going to keep giving you that partial credit. So let me share my screen here. We'll get right into the lesson. Today we're talking about sharing and creating information, and most of the information we get online is due to collaboration. Now, going back to week 2, where we talked about the creation of the internet, where it was started by the Department of Defense and various universities, that was the collaboration to share packets of information from point A to point B to point D to point C. And moving forward, looking back before the internet, not moving forward, looking back, humans have always collaborated on various different things to survive and advance our technology and ourselves. So if we look at hunters and gatherers, people had to collaborate to survive. We look at villagers when people stopped being nomadic and settled down. Everybody in the village had their role. You had somebody who planted the crops, somebody who harvested the crops, somebody who milled the crops, things like that. When we look at the Human Genome Project, a lot of different scientists got together to map the human genome. Took a whole bunch of years. They finally got it done. We look at scientific journals. They're always revised. They're always mentioning other people's work. So it's a collaboration, an ongoing collaboration. Putting the news together, newscasts has a collaboration from people who are at the scene, people who have information, and people in the newsroom, whether it's print or TV. So now that we're in the online world, it provides us with endless opportunities for collaborations, which can be for the greater good or just silly. And in a way, everything here is kind of information. And we can go back to that food versus oxygen model, right? The silly things we're looking at in this page are in the food model where they're just for fun, they're just for satisfying us. The reading talks about this example from Hollow 2, where 600,000 random users, video game players of this game, got together to solve a mystery, and they did it for free. A lot of times, most of the people, they do things on the internet, they do it for free, for fun, for a hobby. I don't know. I don't really know much about the specific example, but do you know about it? Are there other video game examples that you know where people collaborate? I know Resident Evil, every time they come up with a new game, they release a trailer with little Easter eggs, and people will spend hours trying to find the clues about the actual game before it comes out. And you have Reddit pages, YouTube blogs, and things like that. One of the interesting things of collaboration online are flash mobs. And here's an interesting example where people get together and hit each other with pillows. The music kind of sucks here, so I'm gonna mute this and you can just see it. So it's just, has anybody participated in this? I know they have them in Union Square. It's just a bunch of random people hitting each other with pillows, like, hey, we're all gonna meet up Tuesday at 5 p.m. and just have chaos. They have these with water guns, they have these with singing, and sadly, they have the flash mobs with robbing. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where just like a bunch of people will run into like the Louis Vuitton store, grab as many purses they can, and run out. Okay, moving on. So digital collaboration. Now that we're walking with supercomputers in our hands, remember, these phones that we have, even the cheapest Samsung phone that I talked about last class, $100, is more powerful than these old MacBooks. Remember these huge MacBooks? We could get them in different colors. It's amazing to think that our phones have more processing power, more computing power than these computers. And they had the laptops as well. I don't know if they have them here. They look very similar. So we're collaborating on the web all the time. A lot of the things that you do are actually collaborations. When you download movies or apps by BitTorrent, if you've ever done that, or you get books by BitTorrent, um, that's a collaboration. It's somebody getting it somewhere online, somebody posting it online, somebody saying, hey, those links don't work, finding another link. A good example of this is anybody that ever had or has a hacked Fire Stick. Those are just gathering BitTorrent movies and making it easy online. It's super easy. One example was during the pandemic, Disney Plus was charging like 40, $30 to see the new movies. I think the one was Mulan. I forgot what the other one was. And one of my family members was like, nah, we're not paying $30. I got the Fire Stick. And 2 days later, we were watching the movie. Maybe the quality wasn't the best, but over time they do get pretty good. Yelp and Google reviews. This is a collaboration. You need other users to tell you what the review is, or else you wouldn't know. For example, there are certain restaurants that I would not go to if they don't have any reviews because, and they could be new, it's just the world that we live in. I wouldn't eat anywhere that nobody has reviewed. And it's kind of messed up because for the most part, most people won't put good reviews. You only put a bad one, right? I've gone to a lot of good restaurants and I'm put no review, but if it was a horrible one, I'll put a bad review. Amazon is a collaboration. We need reviews. We need people to post things for sale. Without that, it wouldn't exist. Also, let me go here. There's a website called Fake Spot. A lot of the reviews on Amazon are fake, and this is a way you can plug in. Let's see if they have any examples here. So a lot of the reviews, people get paid for reviews. Have you ever bought anything off Amazon and they sent you this little note with the package that says like, hey, if you review us, we'll credit you the amount or we'll send you a free one? Not really supposed to do that because you're buying you're buying influence and you're buying favor, and it's messing up the rating system. But this website will tell you if these ratings are fake or they're real. And I definitely encourage you to do this. If you see something that has like 10,000 reviews, use this and they'll tell you, see, these are all fake. Just hide this. All right. StockX, anybody into sneakers and stuff like that, StockX is a collaboration. You wouldn't have it if people didn't post their sneakers online. And let me see here. Yeah, we'll go back. We'll talk about that in a little bit. A lot of other collaborations are just crazy things. Remember a few years ago they had this egg on Instagram that wanted to get more likes than Kendall Jenner. That's a collaboration. They couldn't make that milestone without us. There was also this guy that was like, hey, Wendy's, if I get 30 million retweets, can you give me free nuggets for life? They said, yeah. He didn't get 30 million. He got like, I don't know how much he got. He got a lot, but in the end, they still gave it to him. One of the really funny examples was this potato salad fundraiser that they had on, let me go back and try to find that for you guys. And he wanted like $5 to get mayonnaise and make potato salad, and he wound up getting like 100,000. How much did he make? Oh, he got 55,000 just to make a silly potato salad. So these are all collaborations. We all need your money here. All right, start this again. And then we have other types of fundraisers. We have this famous picture at the border wall where tons of migrants were coming over. They only wanted to raise $1,500 for the families, and they wound up getting over 20 million. The internet has a lot of bad stuff, but collectively, people have done a lot of good things as well. All right, let's go back. Here's a bad example of collaboration. So Steve Bannon and some other people banded together and they had this crowdfunding campaign called We Build the Wall. The website is down now. So they were riding on the crest of Donald Trump's Build the Wall campaign. And they raised more than $25 million from various sources. from online, and it was actually a scheme. They were pocketing the money. He enlisted a former veteran, and he paid him money to do that. Um, yeah, he's actually been in. This is 2 years ago, but he's actually recently been indicted for this. He's probably going to be charged for fraud. Another. Let me see if I have it here. Uh, so this is a crazy story. This couple saw this homeless man in the street, supposedly, and they did a GoFundMe. They gave him some food. They said, "Oh, we're gonna raise money for him and give him the money." It was all a lie. They conspired with each other. They had the homeless guy was in on it. They wound up raising $400,000. They only gave him a portion of the money, and they pocketed the rest. They bought a whole bunch of expensive stuff, and they went to jail. It's an actual crime. Don't play around with this type of stuff. All right, so most of the biggest websites that we use every day are all collaborations. Facebook is a collaboration. Our map is a collaboration. All the photos, reviews we put, the routes we take, our Instagram, our Snapchat, our TikTok, that's all collaboration. Our Uber, our Grubhub. We need users for reviews. We need people to drive the cars, all of that. Think about all the biggest websites. They're just collaborations where there's a Mark Zuckerberg type of guy who owns just the layout of it, where we provide everything for him. That works the same way with Amazon, with any of these websites. And without us, it wouldn't work. Just like MySpace, you remember MySpace? MySpace doesn't work because everybody left. Now there's a lot of backlash against Instagram because they're pushing the reels heavy, and a lot of people just want the photos. If everybody left Instagram, the app would not work anymore. They wouldn't have any money. There wouldn't be anything to see. I don't think that's going to happen now, but it could happen in the future. Think about TikTok. When it first came out, wasn't that big of a deal, but once everybody started to go on TikTok, then it became a big deal. The bad thing is these big companies, they take the functions of the new programs that are gaining popularity. So I don't know about this app, but I read about it online. There's an app called Be Right where, okay, so if Instagram is just showing your photo in front of you, Be Right is showing you and what's in front of you. And Instagram is testing out that function. They want to be a step ahead of the curve and eat their competition, so to speak. So tech jobs mostly deal with collaboration. If you're a social media manager, you have to manage and work with different people, different companies, different things like that, different people that you're posting. If you work as let's see, what are the Instagram pages I like to follow. There's this lady who just reviews Trader Joe's stuff, right? She's got like 2 million followers, new Trader Joe's products. Now they got all the apple pumpkin spice stuff. That's a collaboration. She does call outs for her users. She works with actual Trader Joe. She's got that big. All these things are collaborations. Coders, UX design, website design. These are all people. These are all collaborations. When you work in tech and media, it's a collaboration. If you work in news, it's a collaboration. If you work in IT, it's a collaboration. And everything most of the things revolving on the internet are collaborations. The bad side of collaborations, the things that are dangerous, that are bad, are doxing. If you never heard of doxing, doxing started on the infamous 4chan message board. So not famous, infamous. Infamous is the bad famous, when you're like noted for doing something wrong. 4chan was this place with a lot of vile, crazy talk. You could say whatever you want. They shut it down, but I think they opened a new one like 8chan, and things like that. What they would do is they will find people's public data and share it online. So a lot of your information is online. If you look in the white pages, if you Google your address, if you Google your parents' address, you can find your house, how much the house was bought for, and things like that. And even slightly paying for an upgraded database, you can get a lot of information. As a journalist, we use this thing called LexisNexis, where I just type in the person's name. It gives me how much money they made, the criminal record throughout the US, all their addresses, any property they had, any businesses they had, all their family members, their neighbors. So I would just go down the list and call everybody. You need a certain license to get that, but there's other websites that want to sell you that. Let me see if I Google my name, if I find something like that. if something comes up. Sometimes they have these things. It's not as easy for me because I have a lot of other of things there. Let's see. I've written a lot of articles and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't see one of those things, or if it is, it's just hidden. Let's see. But a lot of times you do find things like that. Let me see if I could do Google address and see what comes up. Just a lot of my old articles, but do it a lot of times you can Google your name and find things like this. I think what it was is I found something like this and I emailed them to take it off, which you can do. Let's see. I think if I do my dad's name, I think my grandfather's name, it comes up. Because I've seen this before. More of my articles, sorry guys. Oh yeah, here it is. Here's my grandfather's. Here's my dad's, all his information online. Here's no, that's not my grandfather. Here's all my grandfather's information online. And it didn't take that long to find. And you can pay, let's see how much this website charges you. It's gonna charge me something. Okay, so how much you want? Let's see. They always come out with these new websites and things like that. It's gonna charge me see, it's locked. Let's see how much is it. Come on, I don't care for all the heroics and they're just hyping it up. So think about how dangerous this could be for somebody. Think about if you have a vendetta against somebody, if you have an ex or somebody, or you just don't like somebody, you want to get back at them, how dangerous it could be to have their phone number, their address, and everything like that. Okay, this is taking way too long. I might have to skip this, guys. Let's give it another 30 seconds and see. Oh, 10 seconds remaining. They're just really milking this. We'll come back to it. Let's go back to the doxing. All right, so doxing is when harassment begins. It's when you don't like somebody and flooding their Twitter pages, ordering tons of pizza to their house, and more times death threats. And the internet, like I said, is a vile place. People, a lot of racists, feminists, I mean, sorry, anti-feminists, and a lot of people who are bigots and don't like other people. People have received these things just for saying some common sense ideas, and people hide behind online anonymity. They think, hey, nobody's gonna find me, and they say, hey, okay, they can find my IP address. If you don't know, every computer, every digital thing has an IP address, but you can hide that address by using a VPN. And that's how they do things. They're emboldened by they're being concealed. Let's go back to that page and see how much they want to charge me. They're really milking it now. We'll come back to that. So here's a crazy example of how nasty people are online. So there was this military vet who was in the Air Force, and he realized that there was no real place for people with different religions to come together. Um, and he did this in 2005 to say, hey, just because we're from the US, not all of us are Catholic or Christian. There's Muslims, there's Hindus, there's every type of religion in the military. And he created this foundation. And people found his number online. They were calling him saying nasty things, death threats, and things like that. Let's listen to it. This is a trigger warning and might bother you. Skip ahead if anything.
Next message sent Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 3:22 p.m. Mountain Time.
Hi, I'm just wondering, I noticed your name is Weinstein, so obviously you're Jewish.
So I was just curious.
Why is it loading? Sorry, guys. Maybe
Einstein. So obviously you're Jewish. So I was just curious.
give me a second here. I think my Wi-Fi. Oh, there we go. Let me refresh the page.
I am just wondering. I noticed your name is Weinstein. So obviously you're Jewish. So I was just curious if the reason why you're so hateful is that all your family and all your kin were wiped out in the furnaces and the ovens by the Nazis and Hitler. Is that why you're so hateful? Because your families were killed in masses in concentration camps. They were starved and beaten and burned alive and shot and everything else. Is that why you're so hateful? Probably. Have a nice day. Unlike your family did. End of message.
Think about how deranged you have to be to and so close-minded that some guy who's trying to make things more acceptable to people who are actually in the army, and you hate it so much you're gonna threaten this guy and things like that. There's a lot of bigotry on there. A crazy thing in NJ, they always have a bear hunt, and there's people who are for the bear hunt, against the bear hunt. And when we used to write these articles for NJ.com, people would come out and threaten our editors. How dare you, your family, blah blah blah. And it was crazy for something as simple as a bear in the woods. One thing that recently came out similar to this, Star Wars. Star Wars came out with this new show, Kenobi, and one of the main actresses was black, and so many people were upset about it. They were saying they were just against the idea that a character could be black on Star Wars. Mind you, Star Wars has aliens of all different sorts. They were okay with all these weird looking aliens and things, but they didn't think that that a fake a universe with different types of people, they could be a black person. And even Star Wars, which never really comments on things like this, let me see here. They put out statements about it. The main actor, he put out saying there's no room for racism in Star Wars, and if you don't like it, just don't watch. All right, let's see that thing. Let's see. Okay, just send me. All right, we'll go back to that. So that's a bad kind of example of doxing, and there's not really no good example because this is still sort of harassment. But sometimes people might, warrant it. So here's an interesting story that happened a few years ago. So this racist lawyer went to eat in Manhattan and saw people speaking Spanish and was mad at it. He didn't want people speaking Spanish because he thought whatever. Mind you, the U.S. has no official language. And here's what he said.
Staff is speaking Spanish to customers when they should be speaking. I mean, sometimes they do. Yeah. Every person I listen to, you spoke it, she's speaking it. It's American.
Ignorant, and you shouldn't be allowed.
I will be following up. And my guess is they're not documented. So my next call is to IPAD. People are moving out of my country. If they have to come here and live off of my money, I pay for their welfare. I pay for their ability to be here. The least they can do.
He's definitely having a bad day.
You instead of running a place in Midtown Manhattan, you're starting to speak English. Not
Because of people like you, our nation
Hey, I'm going.
so that they can speak.
Maybe you shouldn't be that.
Puerto Rico is a part of the United States and they speak Spanish, so just automatically to assume that somebody speaking Spanish is here illegally, very wrong. And what did they do? He got disbarred, by the way. And they had this crazy party at his house where let me move my face over so you can see this funny thing. They ordered a mariachi band, they had a taco truck, and they went in front of his house or his law office, and they sort of spoke out against it. So more collaboration on the internet. It sounded like a good time. I think I was gonna go, but I was too far or something. Um, I think they closed the discussion, but the discussion was funny. Um, oh, here it is. Let's see. There's too many like crazy posts, but they had like taco trucks and mariachi bands. They had a full out party over there. The party looked kind of fun. Anyway, let's move on. So one of the biggest forms of collaboration on the internet and something you will use mostly throughout your academic career as a sort of reference is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a website that allows any user to add material, to edit, and even delete content. It was designed in 1994 by Walter Cunningham. So Wikipedia is just a type of wiki. There's tons of wikis. There's a Marvel wiki. They have the Star Wars wiki. There's this thing is still searching. We'll get back to that. And so you have the Wikipedia, which is the Star Wars wiki. You have the Game of Fire and Ice wiki. You have wikis for everything. There's two of them. That's why. So yeah, Wikipedia. Anybody could add information. This is super useful. I was watching Power recently, and I was confused. And they have a Power wiki. So most famous wiki, of course, is Wikipedia. It started in 2001 as a free encyclopedia. At first, the site struggled to attract people to contribute for free. Remember, all these sites exist because of free collaboration on the internet. If nobody's using it, it won't succeed. But by 2014, Wikipedia had 4 million articles and was more important than the New York Times. Usually, when you Google any topic you want information for, the first thing that's going to pop up is Wikipedia. But how can we trust Wikipedia? Here's some numbers behind Wikipedia, how fast it grew. How many articles? It's 40 million articles. There's some bad things with Wikipedia. China has blocked it. U.S. congressional staffers edit their bosses' political biographies to be good. How do we know it's real? This class could write a wiki about me and it's full of lies. I could write a wiki about a student, it could be full of lies. How do we know it's real? So here's some of the funny hacks that edits that Wikipedia had. One funny thing, I love hip hop drama and stuff like that. Years ago, Drake was beefing with Common, and Common made a line that he was Canada Dry, referring to the ginger ale. And in in the Canada Dry page, they put Drake's photo. So here's some other crazy hacks by Wikipedia. Charlie Sheen, they put some vulgar thing about him. The Batman Wikipedia page, they put the Batman theme song. This is a Wikipedia page about the God complex, and all the way at the end they listed Kanye West. They put the Turkish president as a photo of a cockroach. And Turkey's pretty tough. Turkey's monitors their stuff, so I hope nobody in Turkey did that because it'd probably be in jail. Let's see what else. This is a Wikipedia page for a run-on sentence, so anybody could do this. How do we know that it's right? Let me move this back over here. The content belongs to the community and not Wikipedia. Errors can be corrected or seen quickly by lots of users, usually working for free. But a small group of editors stay on top of it. And at times, when things get really crazy and people go nuts, they lock the page. So here's a recent example where they lock the page of the Wikipedia. So Liz Truss is the new British PM, and they were going on her Wikipedia page and putting like photos of like reality TV stars and saying crazy things about her. That's obviously not her. Plus I'm not versed in British reality TV shows, so I don't know who these people are, but it's obviously not her. So one of the things I was gonna have you guys do for the weekly assignment was I was gonna have you edit the Wikipedia page and use the bar tools Rutgers as a source, but I figured if like 100 students start editing this page, they were gonna lock it, so I didn't have you guys doing that. And how easy is it to do this? Just go to Rutgers University and I do edit. And look, I can just change anything here. I'm not going to do it. And my IP address is logged. So you can say, you could find me if I put something super vulgar or super vile. So let's get out of this and go back. Let's close some of these tabs. And moving on. We'll check in on that search in a little bit. So let's take a second and reflect here. Does Wikipedia allow us to think more or think less? Think about the times before Wikipedia, how you would actually have to find information. I think in both ways, if we use Wikipedia the right way, it allows us to think more because it's a jumping point for finding more information. For the most part, if we're looking for trivial things, any wiki, we don't need to find more. Like, okay, if I want to figure out what's this obscure scene in the Marvel movies, am I going to go to the library and look up the Marvel catalog? No. It's useful for what you need. But in terms of doing paper or something that I really want to look into and really in depth about, then yeah, I will do more information. It allows me to think more. And I'm going to show you a good example coming up. So going back to the old example, encyclopedias were the Wikipedia of the days. They were huge, expensive books. They meant that you made it, that you had access to information outside of the library, that you could just pull a gigantic book from your bookshelf and read anything in the world. You could start alphabetically and look up, white rhinos, or you could look up Russian tea, those dolls that open and come, whatever. But it was not accessible to poorer people. And it's interesting, in Africa, teachers have used CDs downloaded with wiki info as a teaching tool. So how do we verify information on Wikipedia? First of all, do not copy and paste any information from Wikipedia. Let's say you were doing your paper, right? It's 10 p.m. The paper's due at, it's 9:30. The paper's due at 10 p.m. At 9 o'clock, I go on Wikipedia and write some major fake stuff on Wikipedia, and you copy it into your paper. You're screwed. That's false. And when I look at that, or when anybody looks at that, or your job or anything, that's not how you do it. What you do is you pull the source from Wikipedia to try to find a better one. And how do we do that? Let's go to the Rutgers page. Let's go down to the standings of the university. Excuse me. Where is it at? So, okay, here we go. Let's go to the rankings. In 2021, U.S. News World Report ranked Rutgers as one of the 63rd top national universities and among 23 among the top public universities. So who's saying that? How do we know that U.S. World and News Report is saying the truth? One, we can Google U.S. World News Report Rutgers ranking. And number two, we can look at the citation. So don't ever believe this, because what if Rutgers president went inside here and said, hey, I want to get more students theoretically, and could put number one. You can't believe everything you see on Wikipedia unless you check the source. So luckily the source is here. We're going to click on the source. What number was that? I think it was, okay, here we go. Here we go. Boom. Here's the source here. The rankings. And of course, this ranking has changed from when it was cited and things like that. We need to check the source. Always check it. There's a journalism term that I love that all journalists abide by, and it's so ridiculous, but it's so accurate. And it's mostly from the older dudes in the news, older people in the newsroom. They'll say, if your mother loves you, check it out. Don't believe anything that you hear. All right, so even though there's a lot of fake things, Drake disses, and crazy stuff going on in Wikipedia, for the most part, Wikipedia is still accurate. In a study of Wikipedia, they found that in about 6 million articles, less than 1% had issues. Don't ever cite Wikipedia. You'll fail the paper, and still check the source. Pull the source, do more information. Let's go back to my results. Now they know my email address. I'm not doing that. All right. We're going to dead this, but they're going to charge you some amount of money. So here's another way to look at Wikipedia by using WikiTravel. I love WikiTravel. You guys know I travel a lot. I use WikiTravel every single time. Is this country safe? what do the buses work in this country? It's super reliable. In the old days, people had to rely on these big clunky books called Lonely Planet, which had the bus routes, where to stay in the hostel, what to see in the area. And I still look at this for reference, but for the most part, Wikipedia, Wiki Travel has taken over. But remember, those editions came out every few years and information was outdated. If I'm looking at a Lonely Planet book from 2018 and in 2020, a bridge fell and the route around is going to take 10 more hours, then that Lonely Planet book is not going to do it for me. But thankfully for Wiki Travel, it's quicker, it's free, and it's not bulky. You know, those books are super thick. That has like the whole South American continent on it. And you see, if you travel, you see backpackers all over the world with these big clunky books. So one of the best places I've ever been to is they're called the Corn Islands in Nicaragua. It's not easy to get to. And one of the rules of cheap traveling is, do you have more time or more money? I had more time, so I didn't want to fly. I wanted to take the local way. How did I figure that out? I went to the Wiki Travel page for the Corn Islands. How do I get there for cheap? So I read this, get in. This right here tells you all about getting there for like $10 when the flights are like 200. You take a bus from Managua to this crazy end of the world type of town. You take a ferry boat or a cargo boat for $5 and you wind up there the next day. So I don't only want to rely on this page, because what if somebody said this or things were changed? So I'm going to do a search. Let's see. They said check the schedule of the ferry, check people. In this search of situations, you want to actually go to the place. Oh, that's gone. And you want to actually ask somebody at the bus station if the ferry is running. You want to double check it, because like I said, in this model, this is the oxygen model. I don't want to be stranded on a bus at the end of the world type of place where there's nothing going on. There's not really any food, and the next bus is leaving in 2 days. And that was the view from my room I paid like $10 for, right on the beach. All right, let's go back to the lesson. So you should use the same steps that somebody would take in their travel that could mean a good situation or a bad situation as you take in your info on paper. Use it as a reference, find better sources and verify it, and cite those other sources. So now that we're more connected than ever, it means more information. As we looked about earlier in this class, that can mean a lot of good things or a lot of bad things. But isn't more information, shouldn't having more information mean a better society? That's what the thinking was back in the old days. That the more information we had, things would be more clear, and it could lead to an advance of democracy and creativity. And when the telegraph was first put out, you guys know the telegraph, pre-telephone, line wires, things like that. I think some famous person had this quote that said, we would turn muskets, which at the time were the guns, into candlesticks, because if people knew more things, they would be able to come to an agreement better. And obviously, when that happened, just a few years after telegraph came out, World War II happened. So it's a very ideologic thing to think of, and it didn't happen. Think about the internet. We have all the information in our fingertips, and while it's certainly for the greater good, people have used that easy access of posting and sharing information to spread misinformation, which we'll talk about later in the semester. So with all the good the web has brought, it has also included tons of hate, bigotry, and marginalized people into closed groups. We talked about a little bit early in this class. Let's think about this last part. We have KKK members versus online secrecy, anonymity. So the same way those people used to hide behind those sheets, they're hiding behind the internet nowadays. And this goes against the basic idea of the web. Remember, universities wanted to start, and the Department of Defense wanted to start the internet to share and send information for greater collaboration and for the greater good. And it seems like it has kind of backfired in a way. You know, a lot of the world's problems that we have, I wouldn't say are created by social media, but they're exasperated by social media and the internet. So here's the weekly assignment, guys. For those who want to skip ahead and never watch this lecture, I'll know, by the way. The weekly assignment is to give me a collaboration example not listed in this lecture. You can make it something funny, you can make it something sad, you can make it something crazy, something bad, where like people were collaborating to do something bad or whatever. Any online collaboration example that was not listed in this lecture, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, and providing with the link to the story. So let's talk about the snowball of false information that happened before the internet. So one of the readings goes over this 3 Mile Island story, where in 1979, there was a partial meltdown of a nuclear reactor in Pennsylvania. Misinformation spread quickly, and it spread the old way, the telephone kind of way. You know that game where you were kids and you would sit in a circle and you would say one sentence, and by the time it got to the last person, it was something completely else? That's what happened. And people panicked and spread. One person was at the supermarket and heard somebody else say, "We need to leave." Something happened, and the lady literally dropped her groceries, ran, and soon it was an avalanche of things. Think about it in a way that you were in the dining hall at Rutgers, right? Or the Starbucks. I forgot where that's at. The Starbucks at Rutgers, and you heard somebody say an asteroid is going to hit, and you're like, "What?" And then they run out, and then everybody starts running out, and it's just fake. That's like a snowball of misinformation, and that's what's happening online now, but ever so quickly. Going back, remember in the old days, we only had one day. We had daily newspapers, and we had trusted TV journalists. They had hours or even days to gather information and verify. Now, that is in a couple minutes, and things are always changing. This is Walter Cronkite talking about that situation.
As far as we know at this hour, no worse than that. But a government official said that a breakdown in an atomic power plant in Pennsylvania today is probably the worst nuclear reactor accident to date. There was no apparent serious contamination of workers, but a nuclear safety group said that radiation inside the plant is at 8 times the deadly level, so strong that after passing through a 3-foot thick concrete wall, it can be measured a mile away. Gary Shepard reports from Harrisburg.
The accident occurred here at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, a dozen miles south of Harrisburg.
So Walter Cronkite was basically the voice and face of news for so many years. He has famous moments with the moon landing, the JFK assassination, and everybody trusted him. And he worked for a news organization that adhered to standards. It wasn't opinion based or siding to one side or the other. It was in the middle. So like I said, we're moving fast. We have tweets, we have blogs, we have Facebook posts, Instagram posts. We have nonstop cable news. One is to the left, one is to the right, one is Republican, one is Democrat. How do we know everything that's happening? And in a traditional breaking news situation where things are evolving, it gets even more confusing for us. We have to take our time to verify the sources, read the article, which we're going to go into more later in the semester. So fears generated by rumors and confusion have always existed. It's always been this way. We have crop circles, which I was talking to somebody the other day. They think that it actually exists. But it was a fraud committed by 2 teens that started it, and it spread like other people. We had the Loch Ness Monster, which actually was just a piece of wood floating in the lake. And now we have a lot of crazy things and rumors spreading online. I remember in November of 2019, because remember, COVID-19 started in 2019 in China. I saw these crazy posts, and I wish I would have saved them. It was like the posts on Instagram were like people were zombies in a sense, and this was so insane, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was obviously fake, but people were sharing it and everything. We have this other insane story where there were wildfires in Oregon, right? Let's see, where's the there's a tweet here. And so as part of this news event, there were news journalists in vests that said news, reflective vests with gas masks, because mind you, all this smoke is bad for you, and cameras taking pictures of this news event. Somebody spread the rumor that they were Antifa and lighting the houses on fire. This is a guy who, despite a mandatory evacuation, was guarding his house because he thought Antifa was going to light it on fire. and people were just spreading those rumors and it got out of control. Oh, here it is. This is the local law, the local police department telling people to not believe this stuff. If they have any concerns, to call them. And bad pun intended, it spread like wildfire, and it was bad. This guy could have died by waiting in front of his house trying to guard it from something. They said they were starting fires to riot and loot. All right, moving on. In Britain, people thought that the coronavirus was spread by 5G towers and they were setting them on fire. So, what if you live with a place that has a 5G tower and it catches on fire and falls on your building and you die? Misinformation has deadly consequences. 5G is safe. It uses only a little bit more than what your microwave uses and is necessary for us to move ahead with evolving technologies such as self-driving cars and trucks and things like that. There's been no studies that show that it's actually bad for you. It's just this conspiracy theory that has spread online. And if you want to learn more about 5G, just Google 5G explained and you'll find some useful videos for it. So fake news has spread and become deadly, as I said. We've had riots in Venezuela. We'll get to this one in a little bit. And in India. Let me see if they have the video here. So this is a crazy story, and you could do more Google searches if you're interested in it. In India, they put out this PSA about kids getting kidnapped, where they show this guy on a motorbike pulling up and kidnapping a kid and how to keep him safe. Somebody like cut off the video and made it to seem like it was actually something happening, and it was spreading to different areas saying there's child kidnappers. A couple went on a road trip to a town they never been to. They went to go see some waterfall or something, and the townspeople thought that they were that those child kidnappers and beat them to death in the side of the road because of this rumor on WhatsApp. It's also happened in, I forgot where it happened. I think it was in Mexico or something, where they did it in front of the police station. The same rumor about the child kidnapping spread. WhatsApp had to limit the number of messages that could be forwarded to 5 because these chain messages were getting out of control. And these unpopular ideas about, and if you get into world politics, there's a lot of like ethnic situations where this one group doesn't like that group and blames it for something else. But Facebook and social media has made it way worse. You have genocides and things like that. So this is a long video that talks about Facebook's role in the Myanmar genocide. I'm not gonna play the video for you because it's long and then you're just gonna see my talking head and crappy quality. I want you guys to pause at this point, watch this video, and see how Facebook they didn't start the rumors, but at fault for spreading them. So why can't the companies get in trouble? Why isn't Mark Zuckerberg being locked up? Why isn't I forgot who the other people are who control these social media companies? Why aren't they getting in trouble? So in the US, we have something called Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, a very controversial law that led for a lot of things that shape our internet now. And what that says is that there's a law protecting internet speech, that something that I write, Mark Zuckerberg can't be liable for it on social media. If I write, some crazy thing, people get hurt, he's not liable. But if they change that law and he makes it liable, there'll be a lot more moderation of what people can say and do, and it might curtail free speech, which is a give or take situation. There needs to be some sort of balance. You can't just be able to say anything on social media. And sometimes the posts recently, they get shut down, but a lot of times they don't. And why are they stood up there? Why is there a whole lot of hate speech? Why are all these things profiting Freudian slip? Why are all these things keep being spread on social media? Because they make money. The most controversial things make money. Everybody wants to know about gossip, about their hatred and things like that. People want to share these things and look at it. It's the media organization's responsibility to take that down right away, and they don't necessarily do that. So if there's the problem with this, if there's so much information, how do we know who to trust? And does truth even matter anymore? Especially when something is so widely shared on social media, and when we have even our own presidents and leaders sharing falsehoods. If these leaders are supposed to be the ones to guide us in the right direction, and they're telling us it's okay to share falsehoods, doesn't that kind of make it okay to begin with? So when coronavirus came out, there was a lot of crazy things that said you could kill the coronavirus by doing crazy things on social media. So one of the things was you could gargle warm water and it'll kill the virus in your throat, which the virus wasn't lodged in your throat. You could take a hair dryer and blow it in your nose or something, and it would kill the virus. And we might say, hey, these things are crazy. Who's going to do this? And who's going to get hurt by it? People have died because one of our elected officials promoted a horse kind of medicine. I forgot the name right now. And they took it and they died. It's not a known cure, and it's not, humans shouldn't be taking that. So politicians have always misled. Politicians have always lied on both sides of the political spectrum. You know, looking back, a lot of people praise Obama and say Obama was, one of the better presidents we had in recent memory. But actually, when you look at the immigration side of things, he was known as a deporter in chief because he deported more people in his time than any of his predecessors. Now, if we just look at this photo, right? And this photo got in the news recently because it was circulating on social media and saying, look at the conditions that Trump is keeping these families in at the border, right? If we look at this photo and not do any research and not think and look, do a little bit more homework, we're gonna think, yeah, that's Trump. How could he be doing this? But this was actually a photo from the Obama era in 2014. You can see at the top. So this type of thing was going on for a while. Mitt Romney was caught famous in a lot of lies. He was saying a whole bunch of things. He was pre-Trump in that era where what he was saying was like so ridiculous, and then Trump came and it was like that was nothing. But as I said, America has never had a leader that has lied so much so that Twitter had to regulate his page and eventually deactivate it and not let him tweet. So here's a tracker of the number of lies or misleading claims Trump has made during his presidency. And in 4 years, Trump has made more than 30,000 lies or false claims. And here we can find some of the better, the crazy ones. So here you have a lot of things, a lot of his most craziest lies, and they spike around election time and things like that. But like I said, if we go back, if our elected leaders are supposed to be the ones we follow and uphold to standards of truth, if they lie, it's hard for us to know what's right or wrong. And we'll talk later in the semester how when it is called out a lie, he's transformed this term of fake news to something for his favor. And the Blur book that was written in 2010 talks about an interesting quote that the loudest and simplest voice always resonates with the most people. When I traveled a lot, we have a lot of people say, oh, what's going on with Trump, America, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of Trump-esque people in the world. We have the Brazilian president. We have a guy who almost won the French prime ministry. There's a lot of people like that all over the world. It's not a singular thing. People gravitate to these voices. So how do we stop all this fake news going on? We stop the spread. Some people say, oh, I don't like this. I'm going to write a comment on it. Don't like it. Don't share it. don't comment on it, because that, with the algorithm of the internet, that pushes the post up. You don't want that thing to get traction. If it's that bad, you could report it and get rid of it. It takes about 1 minute to Google something and see if it's true. Like I told you guys a few weeks ago, my cousin was like, the queen died. I immediately went online because I didn't hear anything on it. There was not one news article on this. Obviously, it was false. She said it again just the other day. I looked it up. It was true. So here's an interesting thing here about social media. So Kim Kardashian West said she's tired of the social media platforms spreading hate and all these posts for profit. And this report, this is Taylor Lorenz. She's a very famous social media, like internet reporter who talks on popular trends. She actually did a funny article about Just LaBoy, if you know about those posts on social media about how he got his start pre-pandemic. He was doing some crazy things. If you're interested, look that up. So what she said here makes a lot of sense. They're against the posts, but why don't they just delete their accounts? They're some of the biggest stars. They draw some of the biggest views on social media. Why didn't they delete their posts? Obviously, because they make so much money from it. But that's what she's saying. If you're really against something, don't be part of it. Let's see here. So now in the new information society where, we talked about before, they had the gatekeepers, they had the Walter Cronkite, they had the newspaper editor and publisher. That role is broken down in both what is posted and who is posting, and it's up to us to be the new gatekeepers. And when we think about a form of citizenship before, and these things still exist, right? But they're changed a little bit. Being an ideal citizen meant we would go to vote. We would go to local town meetings. We would help the town with the fundraiser. We would do our civic duty. But now, because of the spread of misinformation and things like that, it's our civic duty to filter through the sources and verify information, because that's part of our society. There was this huge scandal with people mistrust the census because they thought that they were going to, the data was going to be hurting our community, and they didn't want to be a part of the census. That couldn't be any more wrong, right? Why? The census uses these numbers to draw up congressional funds and allocate funds to different districts. If, let's say, your town had 100,000 people and 50,000 people said, no, we're not going to do the census because they're lying and they're going to cheat us, the funds that those 100,000 people would get would be slashed in half, and your critical services would be cut out, right? That was a very bad idea. People didn't understand. They didn't do their homework. They didn't know what was at the heart of the census. They just saw this rumor spreading online and didn't do their research. So for us as model citizens, it's up for us to do our homework. And I would even say it takes it a step further for us. We need to share that with our family members. We need to tell our family members that, I have family members that believe these things online, and I tell them all the time, guys, don't do that. Why didn't you Google? Like, you can't believe everything you see online. So in terms of being a model citizen, it's not only our individual self, it's those around us. And how do we become the new citizens? How do we know what we're looking at is right? There's 6 steps we should all take, and we'll examine later in the semester. We need to first think about, what are we looking at here? Is this a complete account? If they're saying there's a fight, but they only have one side of the fight, that doesn't really make any sense. What about the other side of the fight? How do we assess the sources in the article? Who are they interviewing? Who are they pulling up to give commentary on the article? If you watch CNN or any of these cable news shows, they always, if it's CNN, they have like 3 people for their view and 1 person from like a Fox News view, and the reverse. So who are they assessing for the source? If there's something about sports, I don't want a scientific guy on there about sports. I want a sports person to tell me about sports. How do we assess the evidence that's presented in front of us? What's the evidence? Where did they get it? What's the role in the evidence? If there's a murder, the evidence is it's key, and evidence is key in terms of information that we get as well. How are the news outlets using this evidence? Are they submitting something? Are they omitting something? And we'll see this when we do our papers. There'll be 2 of the same articles, one from Fox News, one from ABC, one from Huffington Post, and one article will put no background information, and one article will put tons of background information. And that information can change the way the article is shaped and read. And finally, are they getting us what we need in terms of becoming the new citizens? Is this article or this information helping us, or is making things worse? And I'm going to give you a classic scenario here with my mentee and former employee, Buddy Stein.
Press, we have the Norwood News, we have the Mount Haven Herald.
All right, so a little background here, and it's been in the news recently as well. Salman Rushdie, right? He wrote this book called The Satanic Verses, which takes a comedic sort of spin on the Prophet Muhammad. And his argument was all religions should be criticized. On the other side, these countries, these Muslim countries such as Iran, were up in arms. They put a fatwa on him, which means there was a thing. They put it's a monetary amount to kill him. Basically, they said you should not ever talk bad about the Prophet Muhammad, and we're going to kill you. He had to go in hiding for years. And recently, only in modern time, in recent years, he's been free. Excuse me. Randomly, he was stabbed at this press conference because of this. And Iran said that they didn't have this, that they got rid of the fatwa years ago. And it was just somebody who had this grudge against him. He almost died. So because of the backlash on this local newspaper in the Bronx, Riverdale section of the Bronx, had posted an editorial about the Satanic Verses and why freedom of speech matters, and they were firebombed because of that. They didn't even write the book. They didn't even have nothing to do with it. They just wrote something in favor of freedom of speech, and they were firebombed. So this was the guy who was the editor, Buddy Stein, and he talks about a modern example of seeing misinformation online and how it's up to us to check it.
Herald. We have the Hunts Point Express, both of those come out of graduate programs, and we have the Bronx Times. This is the Bronx, there's News 12, there's 1.3 million people here. It seems, my feeling is, and BronxNet, of course, we're not
welcome
being
to the
served.
Bronx is another-
Welcome to the Bronx. We're not being served. Is how I feel it, that there's so many people, and there is a real glut of real reporting in the Bronx.
A real dearth of
reporting. Absolutely.
It's true.
Buddy, can I take this one?
Yeah, all right, go ahead, Richie.
I'm just going to say, first of all, obviously there are other media that are cropping up. There's a Riverdale who have maybe
Book page.
and a lot of people.
Be a so long as I could authenticate its authorship. We
So
publish
some not
racist.
so so we don't.
Sorry,
have to
let me
go
find the
through-
part of the.
wait through
I think
30
I have gone through it before.
Somebody put up on this.
Oh, here it is.
Can I jump
Recent-
in here for a
well,
minute?
well,
I'm
let
having
him
a little
finish.
trouble
Let him-
hearing Buddy,
let
but I
him-
can hear you, Gary.
Okay, let him, we'll tell them that, but let him finish and then we'll.
Okay, let
I'll
me know.
repeat it if I have to.
Okay.
So somebody put up on this website, on this Facebook group, a supposed press release from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And it made no sense. Right? It was a tweet.
But just the notion.
Oh, wait,
of
let me
supposed, yeah.
It was a tweet. So I went to Twitter. And the Twitter account says clearly parody of Alexandria, of AOC. Parody. Right? I decided, okay, I'm going to post a comment saying this is a parody. The original poster came back and said, well, it didn't look on Twitter the way it looks. I done a screenshot. Didn't look on Twitter, my Twitter, the way it looks on your Twitter. I said, well,
I don't
simple
know
enough.
what that means.
Simple enough. Go to Twitter and look.
Yeah.
And he came back and said, no, it's definitely her. So the scary thing is when people become impervious to correction or to the facts.
Understanding that, yeah.
We all have our own facts now.
Right. Richie, I don't know if you heard what he said, but he was just talking about trying to interpret what's out there and then how do you
I
determine.
understand. I just wanted to say that Buddy will be leading a seminar on May 19th.
This guy
at
just
a
like me
neighborhood
about the whole
university
conversation.
hosted by Riverdale Neighborhood House.
That's his brother.
So
They're
people
publishers
want
in the
to hear
paper.
a more extended version of what he's saying. That would be a great chance to hear it and to go to Neighborhood House's website in a few days when they put up the information about it.
That is good to know, but he won't need to do that because we're just going to extend this program to another hour and we can get it all done here.
Okay.
So, and Buddy, you're still involved, of course, and Richie too. Where
So basically, he's saying it's up to us to verify this information. You can't just believe it just because it looks real. You can see how this poster was spreading this information for something that clearly said parody. In the role of the new citizens that what we are today, information is everything, right? And it's up to us to decipher that information and things like that. And we'll look at that more during this semester. That's it for this lecture, kind of long. Don't forget to watch that video from John Olive. And I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you.